So this is short track number 3 for me on the 21st, and I've decided that this time I want to ride the Enduro bike. The first two short tracks I used the Cannondale, then the single speed, and I decided to try a little something different here, hoping that the big wheels roll a little bit better. So here we go. See Beat Juice in front of me, and it's a pretty serious start here. I guess everybody's watching the World Cup, and everyone knows that you got to go really hard if you want to get a good position, and you really need to start up front because the guys up front aren't making a terrible bit of gain in this short stretch. But if you're up front, eventually you'll start to pull away. So not much you can do here. Kind of bottlenecked, and people are riding all manner of machines. There's a kid up there. It looks like a downhill bike with some serious travel in it. Dual crown and everything. Um, Pretty impressive that everybody's coming out there. Cross bikes, cross country, hardtail, single speed, everything in this group. So I'm kind of just settling in here because I've got no aspirations and I just want a good workout and to practice my cornering. Because this is one of these courses where it's not about like power and speed unless you are holding it in the corners and unless you need that power to get around people. At this point, even if I wasted a lot of power trying to get around one or two riders, it wouldn't buy me anything. I was really surprised and pretty impressed with this kid on the dual crown bike. Like, damn, he was kicking it. So there's Michael behind me. I think he was the kid that crashed the week before on the start stretch. Looking pretty strong here. And pretty smooth. And there's a few guys behind me, which actually means that I'm not actually last here. But at this point, I'm not trying to hold anybody off, just trying to find myself some rhythm and stay out of some of the dust. But I don't know if you've noticed, but this was probably the dustiest race yet that I've had here. It was like crazy. And for like days after, I was just like spitting dust out. It just seemed like. In any case, coming in this little tricky single track twisty section, which at this point, if the guys are up front, get into this first, they're going to check out because everyone just has to slow down. At this point, am I getting held up? No, not really. But the dust is just phenomenal. And you can see it's just horrible. Looking behind me, a couple of good riders, looking strong. I love this reverse angle. Kind of really shows what the dust does to someone coming off your wheel. Now we're heading towards to the near the start, coming back near the double track near the beginning, and this is kind of a favorite section, and a section I need to like work on. Like this corner right here, I've seen guys like wipe it on that one going in there too hard. See Michael going past the kid with the dual crown bike, a lot of watts wasted there. But if you're actually racing, you have to do that. And actually doing this myself and then watching like some of the World Cup, I am super impressed that Tom Pitcock was able to come from like the 11th row on his first World Cup and make it up to the front. That's just like unbelievable. But here we are in the twisties. I can't say I'm getting held up much, but this section here is where you have to really gas it. And because of the sun angle, there was lots of glare. And because I was wearing this camera, I didn't have my normal visor on. So it was really kind of hard for me to see. Into this section, I definitely get held up a little bit here. I like to get more of a running start just to be able to fly up this and not like be dictated by somebody else's pace. But I know there's really nothing I can do here. So I just settle in. Looking up front, looks like see Rio Rider, which those guys in red are always nice to key off. They're pretty strong. I can at least look up and see if I'm gaining or losing ground. Now the back section here, there's this little tiny little like whoop-de-doo thing where you got to kind of like push down and try to hold some speed here. You see that rider coming up from behind doing it. Kind of breaks your rhythm, but definitely kind of a fun little thing to put in. back into the dust here. So at this point, I'm definitely being like held up. Um, I'm not certain who was up there, but I definitely could have been going a little bit faster here. And you see some of the riders, just accelerating through this section. And the riders that were in front of me, they're not gaining that much. So more sun glare here. Um, Definitely backing off a little bit because of it. Trying to pick good lines and anticipating like when I should actually try to make a move on some of these guys. And clearly, they're held up too. And even the guy, because of the guys that aren't that good in the cornering, but those guys have a lot of power on the straightaways, so they just nail it. And so the guys that would be doing a little bit better in the corners, don't have really any advantage on the straightaways, so they're kind of stuck back here. So biding my time. You see the leaders, like how far they've checked out here on this little section, making that little U-turn first. And you can see where that advantage at the start like really goes. So I'm a little bit held up here, slightly, but to pass here would just be like too much. So I'm biding my time, hoping that on that back stretch I'll be able to gain something. Like this section here on the 29-inch wheels, so much better than on the 650. Even a single speed, didn't have enough speed here, but the wheels rolled really nicely. In fact, I think in this entire race on the enduro bike, I didn't unlock the suspension once. I just let the tires like do everything, which kind of lets me think, maybe I could do that with the other bikes too, the Cannondale, and maybe gain a little bit. But each week I learn a little bit more about this course. So this is the part that kind of surprised me. The first week or so, this little thing was not really challenging, but some people getting hung up. Now everybody's got it wired. And I thought, uh-oh, we're not going up this spot. And what did they do? They added a flipping run-up in a mountain bike race. And this really surprised me. I'm like, what is this? So you get cyclocross guy coming by me. You get another guy, like everybody's passing me here. And I'm like, oh, okay. Now I know. So at least I get the one guy back. The guy on the cross bike, not enough power, so I get by him. So it's clearly like I've got the power, it's just some of the cornering is just not there. So starting to make some gains, and you can see that there's like a little bit of a bottleneck, but if you key off of the Rio guy in the red, the guys aren't just like walking away here. So I'm feeling pretty good. I like this little downhill section. It's kind of challenging. I still like hang my foot off on it, but just for, there's no prizes here and I just want to be safe, but it is like a lot of fun. So the first lap is just about complete. You can come flying through this section. I'm back a little bit because I really want the run up on this little section here. And we'll see what happens behind. Looking good. Coming towards the start finish, which now that I know I can kind of run up this thing, I'm thinking that when I bring my single speed, I want to gear it up a little bit. And since I snapped my chain at the Four Seasons race on that thing, perfect chance to like re-gear it and put a new chain on and try this maybe in a week or so on the single speed again and see what it feels like to run the gears that the big boys run. So almost into the second lap coming past, and this section was super dusty. I mean, I was like choking in this stuff. I was thinking I should have brought my COVID mask or whatever. I'm wondering what kind of damage I'm doing to my lungs by just inhaling all this. So coming through, yeah, there's a guy. He's got his mask on. He's smart. And so I get by him. Another guy on a fairly big travel bike. And at least I'm able to make ground on some of the people that just like blew themselves up on the first lap. So here's a place I was hoping to be able to gain some time, but everybody who was held up, they still have like plenty of power on this section. So not making too many gains here. So we got the guy on the downhill bike, and everybody's pretty strong on the first lap, and this is where the attrition takes, and we can get a chance to get around people. So I don't know who the big guy is on that bike, but finally got around him. So I am making up some places, and the guys that were behind me really haven't caught me. So super impressed with the kid. I mean, that's a lot of weight, and I'm certain that those tires and wheels on that thing don't lend themselves to like lots of acceleration. Plus, he's on like flat pedals, so it's my time to like burn a few matches and maybe get around him because you can see how much of a gap that that group opened up in front of me. And I suspect there was some good drafting going on, because like once again, keying off of the Rio guy that was in front of me, if you had a glance up the road, those guys were starting to check out there, and I'm pretty certain that I would have had the horsepower to like stay with them. So now into the tricky section, and like week after week, this I feel better and better about like digging the tire edges in. Like the first week, people were like knifing all over the place in some of these corners, like pushing too hard, but the track's actually starting to get bedded in a little bit, which I'm kind of enjoying. It's making it a pretty fast course. And I'm thinking one of these days I should bring the cross bike out and give that a whirl just to see what it's like. I haven't raced cross in, oh man, since I was like 35 or 36, because I really never had a cross bike. And back in the day, you could race a mountain bike, and so I had an old Fuji Tie that was like perfect for that. So they changed this section from the first week. I think it flowed a lot better before, but I think they're trying to set this course up for cross. And like when you're doing these courses, I kind of got the lap tricky sections like memorized. And at this being the second time around here, I'm like, I don't have this one like dialed in yet. So during that little section, it's like tricky. I was like, which way we go? Because of all the dust and all the sunlight or whatever. Now into this fast little section, no one in front of me, so I've got a chance like to open it up and corner as best I can, and maybe like bring some people back. This is actually like a fun little course. The only thing I would have really liked that they didn't do this year is have some like real timing. Otherwise, we just have to use Strava. But not everyone's Stravaing their stuff, and it'd really be nice to know like, was I on parity with some of the laps? How fast were the leaders? I don't know. So that was kind of a little bit of a bummer from the previous years. So you can see some of the attrition here. That guy's like letting me by, realizing I'm coming, and that was kind of nice of him to just let that happen. The good thing about like this year's fitness for me is I can pretty much run these laps like pretty consistently each lap. The first week we did this, there was only like 3 laps, and I was thinking that there were going to be 4. And then the next week, there were like 4 laps, and I was like, oh, thinking there were going to be 3. But I was like, okay, let's see if we have anything. And lickety split, I felt just as good on that 4th lap as I did on the 3rd and the 2nd. So clearly, like the fitness that I have this year, and it's from a lot of the gravel races, like the Ned Gravel, where I did the tungsten, like 60 miles, and then the crooked gravel before that. All these long races have really like helped my endurance, where I can do these short track ones, at a pretty high effort. And given that some of these corners, like I'm nowhere near pegged as far as anaerobic or even muscular like strain, another lap like isn't a problem. Kind of thinking it might be fun just to do the open race after this, hang out in the back and see how well I do, especially with the single speed, because that's like the official single speed group is the last open group because those guys are like so fast. And it'd be nice to take a look at their gears and see, well, how fast are they really? I mean, they look super fast, but that would be fun and test my fitness. Oop, there's a guy looks like he probably went down there, unfortunately, straightened himself up. I can see the guy checks to see if he's okay. When I went by, I asked him if he was okay, and he seemed fine. Probably just his pride and maybe his handlebars got a little askew. But now you can see like how far people have gotten ahead. Um, Not too terribly far ahead, but I feel like because of how tricky this course is, it is super difficult um, to use your power to catch up to people. The gains made on this course are how fast you can corner and hold your speed. I mean, it's kind of like kart racing, with underpowered carts, right? You just got to like keep that throttle down, lift when you have to. But for the guys that don't lift in the carts, you're going to be gaining. And it's the same here. The guys they're comfortable, maybe taking a little bit of risk, knowing the limits of the bike, maybe a little bit better than I do, um, are making big gains like on this course. Like it's kind of unfortunate that I forgot to start my Garmin on this one, so I don't really have any comparison to what I did on the single speed or the Cannondale. But one thing was interesting, like on the first two short tracks, it was the same course, and I was actually faster on some of the laps on the single speed, which that really kind of surprised me. And I'm guessing it's because like everybody got faster and everybody got smoother. And even though it's only a few seconds difference, it really shows that it's the cornering that makes a lot of the difference. The single speed, my big limitation was the wide open stretches like the back stretch. That's where like everybody gained advantage. But on the first lap, when we're going into the twisties or whatever, I felt like I was pretty on par with like everybody else until I like spun out. So I'm kind of interested in putting in. I think I have like a 21 on that single speed. I would love to go to maybe a 19 or maybe just or a 20. See how things are different. Checking out the course. Definitely a fun course. And I love this little section coming into the trees here. You can kind of like, I've got a dropper on this one, so you can kind of pump through a lot of this. And then since you got to stand up anyhow on this, just like push up through here pretty hard. And you can see, well, I'm just about catching like this rider. So I'm definitely making gains on people. And I'm guessing that he was probably holding people up at some point, unless, of course, he crashed. So what does it say? Like 2 laps to go. The start finish is kind of a nice area. Get to see a bunch of people that you know. Although, like this year, I see fewer and fewer people that I know. Like, it's definitely like a younger crowd coming to this. I'm like, am I too old for this? I kind of look for like Ned to be there. Haven't seen him unless he's moved up to open. Like a lot of my contemporaries, I see him here, but it's like 3 or like 4 of them. So, but it's still a good time. I'm certain that they have a different jam, that they're out there like having fun, and this is totally like not my main thing either. It's just fun, and for the $15, to support the kids at Sintown, pretty cool. So here I go, and I think this is James L something or other. He's got an Instagram page. Um, Talked to him a few weeks ago, so I get by him, and he drafts me on the backstretch here, like saving lots of energy. And I think, okay, you know, I should be able to waste him at some point. But look, and oh, there's a little wave to the camera. Yeah, he notices the 360 camera. It's kind of cool. And look at that dust. I mean, that's just like flipping crazy. Like on the start lap with the like 20 riders, 50 riders in front of you. It's just crazy. So you see the lean angles, and this is like the third lap, so I'm still doing pretty well. Like I caught this guy, so I can see I've definitely like motivated him, and both of us being social media guys, maybe there's a little bit of rivalry here. So he tries to get by me, and I think I say something to him like, "That was a nice try," but the big block has lots of power, and that's one of my strengths. Is that even when I'm like aerobic, and if I haven't been doing it very long, I can reach down and throw down a few more watts. So you got to put something down, especially after I just passed you. Um, Knowing that you're probably going to hold me up later, unless of course you just weren't motivated until you saw me, and that's good too. But you can see I'm like getting, a little bit of ground here, like setting it up. But I think he's definitely motivated either by me in front or the rider behind him. So, is that guy on a cross bike or something back there? Yep. Probably getting his footing or whatever. So here comes James again. He's gonna try to make a pass on the outside or whatever, but I hold him off. I'm like, it's gonna take big watts to get around me, and this is not gonna happen. Um, but it's a good chance, and it's a nice charge. And he like, and this is like real racing here. But he's tried to pass on the outside, and I held the inside, and like for motocross racing or mountain bike racing, that they hold that inside line. You got to be able to run a lot faster. So I'm pretty happy. But clearly, I've inspired him, and there's like motivation here. So because he's definitely like right on me. So I'm hoping here, that well to get away from him. But it's kind of fun to watch him. It's pretty smooth, and I guess that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I didn't do the whole 4 laps because it's kind of boring, but you get the gist.